Hello friends, welcome to Byju's. Today we are going to discuss about the middle classes. Now, why is this important? Why discussing about middle classes is important? Now, Indian society for a very long time had been looked at from the point of view of caste, only caste. But over a period of time, things are changing. There's change in the urban economy, there's also change in the agricultural sector. See, at some point of time, considering Indian society, looking at Indian society only from the perspective of caste might have made more sense. But now there is a lot of change. Different kind of social relations are emerging now. Different kind of new groups, associations are coming up. The social structure is also undergoing a massive change. Now, it is in this context that looking into the Indian society from other dimensions apart from caste also makes more sense. So that is the reason we are looking at Indian society from the class dimension as well. It is not that the older factors, for example, caste, they have become completely irrelevant and insignificant. They are also playing an important role. So there is change, but there is continuity as well. So it is from these dimensions, from these angles that we should look at Indian society. So in this section, the middle classes, we will be looking at both the angles. We'll be looking at the different perspectives, how middle classes have been constructed, how they have evolved over a period of time, how different thinkers look at middle classes differently, what has been the significance of this particular section of the society, and in which direction we are heading. All these things we will cover in this session. But the first thing here, who are the middle classes? What are some of the thinkers saying about middle classes? So what does Marx and Weber tell us about middle classes? Now, if you remember, what did Marx tell us about the society? How the society is divided into classes? So according to Marx, the society is divided into two major classes. One is the minority of the small producers. The other one is the majority consisting of those who are the producers. So basically, on the basis of ownership, the society is divided. Some people have ownership over the means of production. They consist of the non-producers, minority, small number of people. While others who are in majority, they are the ones who are not the owners of the means of production. So they are majority. So property relations, who are owning the means of production, this is the most fundamental way by which society is divided. And according to Marx, the small minority of non-producers, they are having economic domination because they own means of production, and since they have economic domination, they also have political domination. There is an overlap in that case. So this is what Marx talked about, how the society is divided along class lines. But did he say anything about the middle classes? Now, what does Marx say about the middle classes? Now, he's saying that middle classes do exist, but they are just transitional in nature. In the final phases, they will not exist. They're just transitional. For example, he says that self-employed peasants and petty bourgeois, they can be classified as the middle classes. But over a period of time, the society gets polarized. One side you have the capitalists, the bourgeois, other side you have the proletariat, the working class. So these people, the middle classes, they will either be on this side or they will be on this side. So they are transitional in nature. So he's saying that they are definitely going to disappear in the capitalist system of production. And why he's saying that these are middle class, this particular category, they are middle classes, why they cannot be classified as capitalists or proletariat? Because these categories, they are the ones who are working and they are the ones who are also owning the means of production. For example, self-employed peasant. So that person is basically working on the land that he has. Or the petty bourgeois, they are owning as well as working on their own. They're not employing someone else to work for them. So this particular category of people, self-employed peasants and petty bourgeois, they are classified as middle class because their position in the classification that Marx suggested will not be there, will be a little ambiguous. So they are owning as well as they are working. They are the petty bourgeois and the self-employed peasant, they are the middle classes, and they will disappear over a period of time. They are just transitional in nature. So this is what Marx had to say about middle classes. Now, what does Weber say about middle classes? Now, what is his notion of classes? According to Weber, class, what is class? Now, he feels that class develops only in market economies. Class consists of those people. One class will consist of those people who have similar position in the market economy. That means their ability to draw rewards in the market economy is same. Since their ability to draw economic rewards from the market economy is same, their life chances are also same. Those things which are considered aspirational or which are considered desirable, they're able to acquire it. So your ability to acquire these kind of things are also same. Those are in the same class. Now, what does Weber say about middle classes? Now, he's saying that the class situation of non-property owners differ when it comes to skills. So middle classes will consist of these people, those who are the non-property owners. But again, among them, there are people who have significant variation when it comes to skills. The market value of skills of an individual keeps on varying. For example, the market value of the skill that is possessed by a doctor will be much more than the market value of the skill possessed by a clerk. So if you look at the society, those who are the non-property owners, among them also, different people have different kinds of skills. And since different skills are there, the value of the skill is also different. Now, according to Marx, society was divided into two classes. Those who are the property owners and those who are the non-property owners. And in between, you have the middle classes. But Weber is different from Marx here. Now, what he's saying is, those who are not owning property, among them also there is a lot of differences. There's differentiation along that. Now, those who are non-property owners, now among them, different people will have different kinds of skills. Now, if your skills are different, then your value in the market, basically the value that your skill commands in the market will also be different. So he's saying middle classes are these people whose skills will have certain specific values. And he's not saying that there will be polarization in the society. He feels that in the society over a period of time, these white-collar workers, white-collar middle class, they are going to expand over a period of time. The different kind of services and all these things will come up. So it will require their specialization. It will require their skills. So they are now going to expand rather than contract, which has been suggested by Karl Marx. So this is the concept provided by Max Weber. So Weber refers to middle class as those who do not have any ownership of any property, but they are having some skills which has a market value. The white-collar middle class. Now, apart from Weber and Marx, other thinkers have also tried to define middle classes. They have talked about middle classes. Now, we'll see some of these notions apart from what we have already discussed. For example, Bendix, he says that the middle classes are more closely linked with the ruling class. Why middle classes are linked with the ruling class? Because Bendix feels that middle classes have formed because of structural differentiation, and from the ruling class itself has got now structurally differentiated to different other classes. So one of those classes, middle class. C. Wright Mills says that the ruling class is more closely aligned or linked with the working class. Why does he say so? He feels that the working class also does not own different kind of properties. They do not have any ownership of the means of production. The same thing is applicable for middle class as well. And if you look at it, both the interest of the ruling class as well as the middle class will be more or less same. The interests are also same. And in case the middle classes, they feel that they are more like the ruling class, then they are having false consciousness. And this false consciousness is likely to disappear over a period of time. Now, Dahrendorf says that there is no such thing as middle class. Instead of middle class, what exists exactly is two different groupings. One is the group of bureaucrats who have that ruling authority, and another is the white-collar workers, which have a more or less proletarian class situation. So there is nothing like middle class. They are just two different groups. Now, Lockwood says that middle class is a structurally ambivalent situation, mixed kind of situation, as per Lockwood. So these are some thinkers who have some notions, some different notions, varied notions about middle classes. Now, another way it has been classified is the classification given by Giddens. Now, Anthony Giddens, he says that there are three classes in a capitalist society. First one is the upper class, which have the ownership of means of production. The middle class, which possesses educational and technical qualification, and the lower or the working class, which has manual labor power, which possesses manual labor power. So this way, the society can be divided. Ownership of means of production. Second one is those who have educational technical qualification, the middle classes, and the third one who have labor. Now, their relationship with forces of production, their strategies to draw rewards from the market, the strategies to earn money, earn their livelihood, draw rewards from the market, they will vary. So that is how he has classified. How you are related with the forces of production, how your strategy is to draw rewards from the market, that way Giddens has made this classification. Now, another way to look at middle class is to divide middle class into two types. The old middle class and the new middle class. Sometimes if you study middle classes, these kind of references can be there. That old class is like this, new middle class is like this. There is emergence of new middle class. Now, whenever you come across these things, try to understand what they are talking about. Old middle class, it refers to those petty bourgeois, the self-employed peasants. Now, these were the people who owned the means of production. So they are referred to as the old middle class. Now, who are the new middle class? These are the salaried, skilled professionals, skilled white-collar salaried employees or the self-employed professionals. They do not own the means of production. And these new middle class, how can you differentiate them from those other workers, other laborers? Generally, their salaries will be much higher than the blue-collar workers. And since their salaries are higher, their lifestyle and other things will also be varying. So, new middle class refers to those people who have some amount of skill, some amount of qualification, and they are not having any ownership of the means of production. Old middle class, they own those means of production. They will work in their own farms, for example. So, this is how the old and the new middle class is different. Old middle class are the kind of middle class which Karl Marx referred to. New middle class, it is the kind of middle class which Weber is referring to. They're having some sort of skills, technical qualifications, and their skills has a market value. Also, another difference here is the old middle class. It is outside the polar class structure. Here, if you have the capitalists, here you have the workers. The old middle class will be placed somewhere in the middle. So they are outside the polar structure, class polar structure, the two poles. But the new middle class, they are part of the industrial economy. They are part of the big organizations. In fact, they are providing different kind of specialized services. They are skilled, so they provide some sort of specialized services. So they are part of the big organizations. They're in fact meeting the demands of modern industry. These new middle classes, they are skilled, they are professionals, and they provide specific technical administrative skills. And over a period of time, with specialization, the requirement of these kind of professionals is going to increase. There has been an expansion of the tertiary sector, expansion of the servicing sector. They also require these kind of individuals. So there has been a gradual increase of these kind of roles in the total economy. If you look at the total working population, proportion of these kind of professionals in the total working population has gradually increased over a period of time, especially in the Western industrialized countries. So this is also another way by which you can differentiate. Old middle class was not part of the polar structure. The new middle class is part of the industrial economy. They are part of large organizations and they meet the different kind of specific demands of large industry. Now, how middle class is emerging? So if you look at the emergence of middle class, we'll do two things here. First, we will look at the emergence of middle class in Europe. And we'll also look at the emergence of middle class in the context of India. Now, in Europe, initially, the term middle class is used for the bourgeois. Now, who are these big bourgeois? They were in between those who are the land-owning caste and those who are the poor working classes. So initially, the term middle class is used for these bourgeois who are in between the land-owning classes, the aristocracy, and the poor working classes. Now, over a period of time, this land-owning class, its significance is gradually declining. If you remember, feudalism is disintegrating. So the significance of land-owning class declines. Now, those who were the bourgeois, now they are becoming the ruling class. Initially, middle class is the bourgeois, and this middle class is between the landowning class and the poor working class. But over a period of time, this landowning class is disappearing, and this bourgeois becomes the new ruling class. And now, who are known as the middle classes? The middle classes now change. Now, the middle class refers to those who are the small traders, professionals, artisans. And over a period of time, this middle class is also expanding. Why? Because there is urbanization. We are moving towards specialization. And these people are providing some kind of specific services. There is development in industries. In industries also, you require some sort of skilled professionals. So they are also becoming more important. Apart from that, it is very difficult to directly procure things. Direct relation between consumer and producers, this thing can be very difficult. Let's just imagine your own scenario. You are not directly procuring from the producers. Producer is somewhere in the rural area, he's producing something, the farmer is producing something. But you are not going to the producer and purchasing your vegetables for other requirements. So in between, there are different kinds of intermediaries. And these intermediaries are now the middle classes. So because of all these things, because of urbanization, because of development of industry, because you cannot link consumers and producers directly, it is not that easy to link them together. There is now proliferation and there is an expansion of middle classes. That is what we are observing. So this way, the middle classes are emerging. Now, different thinkers have also given some other factors why middle classes expanded, they got consolidated. For example, one reason is given is there was a rapid increase in the number of large organizations, big corporations. G.D.S. Paul also talks about the same thing. He says that there is massive expansion of joint stock companies, and these companies will require some sort of bureaucratic organization to handle the administration, to enjoy management. So they will require these white-collar skilled professionals. Apart from that, there was also proliferation of public schools. There was kind of education. So it is also leading to creation of skilled professionals. Lockwood also talks about the same thing. Because of organization, because of corporate capitalism, there is proliferation of middle classes. These big corporations, capitalism requires specialization. It requires some sort of specialized skills. Who are going to provide these skills? It is the middle classes. And how these middle classes are being created, how these specialized skills are being created by the system of education. So education and emergence of all these large entities, big corporations, spread of corporate capitalism, all these things is leading to the expansion of the middle classes. How is the middle class forming in India? We look at the scenario in the West. But what is happening in our own home? How middle classes are emerging in the context of India? Now, it is said that in case of India, the middle class is emerging during the colonial rule. It is emerging under the patronage of the British rulers. Now, how is this happening? Now, when the Britishers are coming to India, they are transforming our economy, our polity. They are changing the revenue systems. They are trying to bring about industrial economy. They're bringing about the modern industrial economy. They are also changing our political administrative structures. They are also inculcating us, inculcating Indians with some modern values, Western ideas, cultural values. All these changes are taking place in the context of India. Now, it is said that in case of Europe, industrialization was because of economic and technological change. But in case of India, it is primarily because of changes in the administrative structures. B.B. Mishra talks about it. Just read the statement that you can see on the screen. B.B. Mishra says that in the West, the middle classes emerged basically as a result of economic and technological change. They were for the most part engaged in trade and industry. But in case of India, they emerged more in the consequence of changes in the system of law and public administration. The administrative authorities are changing. So in case of India, they emerged more in consequences of change in the system of law and public administration rather than in economic development. And they mainly belong to the learned profession, those learned professions. In case of Europe, it was different. It was primarily those who are engaged in trade and industry. But here, learned professions, for example, doctors, journalists, lawyers. Now they are the ones who are the middle classes. In Europe, it was those who are the traders, the merchants. They were considered to be the middle classes. Now, reason for formation of middle class is different as per B.B. Mishra. In Europe and India, they are different. What B.B. Mishra is saying is, when the Britishers are coming to India, there is now a massive change in the social relations. Britishers now want to create some intermediaries. See, they are now expanding their railway networks. They are trying to set up industries. Now, they want to create a group of people who can communicate between them and the people who are between the natives. They wanted to create that kind of section in the population who can communicate between the British rulers and those who are at the bottom, the natives. And for that, they're trying to create a middle class. Also, they're creating all these setups, the different kind of organizations they're setting up. All these things requires manpower. Who is going to provide that manpower? One way is try to get these manpower from Britain, but it might have been a costly affair. And also getting so many people would have been difficult for them. So now what they're realizing is, rather than getting people from Britain, try to cultivate a particular kind of constituency within India itself, who will be trained with some sort of Western values which Britishers also are comfortable with. So inculcate those values, provide them those kind of skills so that these kind of day-to-day activities can be carried out and these people will be kind of mediators. So they are trying to create a class of intermediaries. And gradually, there's increase in trade relations, they have been created. Apart from that, they're now starting a new education policy, which is now focusing on English education. And over a period of time, they wanted to create a class of imitators who will be following the Western values of British values. They're not trying to create a class of people who will be creating their own values. That is what they're not talking about. They want someone who will be just imitating their values. That is how Britishers are pushing forward all these things. For example, education, they're trying to push forward. Britishers, they're focusing on industrial revolution, they're focusing on railways, they're also trying to focus on certain servicing sectors. And these sectors, all of these sectors will require and some sort of staff for their administrative situations, not possible to get it from Britain. So they are setting up schools, colleges in India, in different parts of India. So those who are now getting educated in these institutions, they're educated in English and secular education is being provided to them. Now these people, they are basically going to spread the Western ideas and cultural values. This is what was assumed by the Britishers. Lord Macaulay in 1935 talked about creating these class of people. What he's saying is, we must at present do our best to form a class who may be interpreters between us and the millions we govern. A class of person, Indian in blood and color, but English in taste, in opinions, in moral, in intellect. So that is what the Britishers wanted to create. They wanted to create a class of person who are racially Indian, who are Indian when it comes to blood and color. But when it comes to intellect, when it comes to taste, when it comes to opinions, in all these areas, in all these domains, they will be more or less like the Britishers. So that is what was the main aim. Now, how this is shaping up in future. So they are introducing it and they are now setting up different kind of education institutions. Different kind of professionals are coming up. For example, lawyers, doctors, teachers, journalists. The number of these professionals are increasing gradually. If you look at the number of colleges that we have, if you look at the number of people who are being trained in this college, it has gradually increased over a period of time. In 1911, just 186 colleges were there, which was training somewhere around 36,000 students. It increased to 385 by 1939 and almost 4 times the number of students, more than 4 times the number of students they are having. So this way, they are trying to expand. This way, the middle classes are gradually expanding. So during this time, the colonial period, the middle class is expanding now. Now, who will be considered as part of the middle class during the colonial periods? Now, first of all, it will include all those old middle classes that we used to refer to in the Western context. Those petty traders, shopkeepers, independent artisans, they will be all part of it. Apart from that, as the economy is gradually improving, this development in railways, plantations are being set up, number of opportunities are also increasing. Those traders who could accumulate savings, now they have started investing in different modern industries. So they will also be considered as part of those middle classes. Traders who are now expanding. Apart from that, Swadeshi movement also had a role to play. Now, Swadeshi movement focused on producing things on our own, should not be dependent on foreign products. So native industry is also getting a boost. Now, this native industry will also require some sort of skilled workers, white collar workers. So those who are getting employed as white collar workers in native industry, they will also be part of the middle classes. Apart from different administrative positions are also open, police officials, the judicial officials. So they also require some white collar employees. Now, this is also leading to emergence of a middle class over there. So these were the middle classes in the colonial period. Now, these middle classes, initially, they were collaborators. Or initially, at least the Britishers thought that we will create a class of intermediaries. And in fact, many of these people who the Britishers were creating in the initial phases, they were the intermediaries, they were the collaborators. But gradually, over a period of time, now they are questioning the role of the Britishers. They are getting involved in different kind of social religious reform movements, Brahmo Samaj, Arya Samaj, different kind of reform movements. So it is the middle classes who are now participating. They are raising different kind of political questions. In fact, they are also questioning the legitimacy of the British rule. Some of them are now questioning the fact that wealth is being drained from India to British, drain wealth theory. All these things are being raised by people who are in the middle classes. Apart from that, they are now providing leadership to the independence movement. Leadership of the national movement was provided by the Indian National Congress, one of the most dominant party, in fact, the most dominant party point of time. But if you look at International Congress, it was basically dominated by people who were from the middle classes, the professional middle classes. Mahatma Gandhi, Nehru, they were all professionals, lawyers. And generally, if you look at the leaders' profile, most of them will be professionals, and most of them will be from the middle classes. Congress would also get the support of other sections of the society in the later phases. That was also there. Far more comfortable with the English-knowing, urban-centric middle class constituents in the Congress than with the unwashed masses. This is the statement of the Britishers. So initially, the middle classes might have been created as an intermediary, but over a period of time, they are questioning the role of Britishers. They are questioning the legitimacy of their rule. And the political movement, the movement for India's freedom, India's independence, was initiated by British. Wanted them to link between the masses and the Britishers, and they wanted to instill the Western values, the Western culture through them. But over a period of time, they are now questioning the role of the Britishers. They are participating in the national movement. They are playing a very, very important role. Leadership to the movement is also provided by the middle classes. Now, what is the role of middle classes, or what has been the composition of the middle classes after independence? Now, what was the size of the middle class at the time of independence? Again, different estimates are there, but generally it is said that it was around 10%. But this middle class itself was not an undifferentiated monolith. It was not one. It had its own differentiation. But despite being different, despite being differentiated, there were certain features which used to unite all those people who will be considered themselves as middle class. For example, the ideology, the aspirations will be same. Education is one of those primary criteria by which you can say who is middle class. Education defines who are part of this particular class. Middle classes give a lot of importance to education. So, income, occupation, education, all these things play an important role in defining who is the middle class. But only income and occupation will not be able to decide. Education also plays an important role. Now, there is a general consensus that who is a middle class. Those who are in between these two extremes. On one side, you have the agricultural poor. Those are the peasants. Those are the land. Then you have skilled, semi-skilled, unskilled, manual laborers, sometimes skilled manual workers as well. Those petty clerks, employees. So on one side you have these class. Other side you have the upper classes, who are the rich industrialists, who are the capitalists, zamindars, members of princely families. So between them, what exists is the middle class. Now, zamindari, princely families, all these things have been abolished. We are talking about middle classes in India just after independence. At present, what we can say is those who are in between the rich industrialist capitalists on one side and the agricultural poor or the working class. So, and when I say petty clerks, it basically refers to those who are peon and these kind of professions. So in between whoever is there, generally they are considered to be the middle classes. For example, those who are working in the government services, those who are the qualified professionals, doctors, engineers, lawyers, journalists, these people. The generally middle classes will be the middle income groups. But income, as I told you, is not the sole criteria. Education, sometimes knowledge of English is also considered by some thinkers, not everyone. So income is not the defining criteria. Education, ideology, they play a very important role. Now, after India is becoming independent, governments are unleashing different development programs, and all these development programs, they're also requiring certain professionals. Now, those professionals who are part of these development programs, they will also be considered to be part of the middle classes. So these are the people who you can consider to be part of the middle classes. Now, what are some of the trends when it comes to middle classes? Now, there is urbanization, there is industrialization, and there is also expansion of the tertiary sectors. For example, expansion of services sector. All these will require certain specific skills. So, since specific skills are required, technical qualifications are required, there will be an expansion of the middle classes. So, there is expansion of middle classes with the expansion of these areas. Apart from this, there is also an emergence of middle class in the rural areas. Why there is an emergence of middle class? Now, when India is becoming independent, after that, we are initiating different programs for development of rural areas, different rural development programs. So, these programs, then after in 1960s, we are also starting Green Revolution. Now, what was Green Revolution? In Green Revolution, high yield variety seeds were introduced. Modern methods of agriculture, modern methods of farming were used, as a result of which also there was increase in production, there was increase in productivity. It also led to creation of certain middle classes. And now what has happened is, among the rural areas also, the aspiration of people has changed. Now they also want to acquire English education. They also want their kids to study in colleges and universities. This is also leading to expansion of the middle classes over a period of time. There is also a change in the consumption patterns. It is said that we are moving towards being a consumerist society. Things which were not considered important at some point of time, which are not considered utilitarian, which are not utilitarian, might be purchased. Material goods hitherto considered unnecessary for a simple lifestyle of a farmer began to be sought. So lifestyles as yet remote and shunned were emulated, even in rural areas. So things which might not have been relevant, might not be utilitarian, even for a farmer, is now being purchased. You might have observed these things. Now also you will observe different kind of songs, specifically the vernacular songs which are quite prevalent in the countryside. They will talk about it. All these Punjabi rap songs. They will talk about all these kind of brands. These brands are also incorporated in these songs. This points to the fact that even in these cases, consumerism has become more important now. So, but one thing here, the rural middle class that is emerging, the rural middle class and the urban middle class, they have some differences. The rural middle class is more local in character, it is more regional in character. It will focus on its own interest rather than the national interest. That is also the reason why, when we observe these different kind of regional movements, they have different regional movements in case of India for greater autonomy, for other things, for more political autonomy. So generally, it is the regional middle class which has played a very important role there. So they are providing leadership to the regional autonomy movement. Regional autonomy, for example, demand for creation of a separate state. So here, the rural middle class has played a very significant role. So generally, they will perceive their interest not from the nationalist framework, but from the regional framework. So that is the difference between the rural middle class and the urban middle class. Apart from that, there has also been the emergence of the Dalit middle class. Now, what is this? How this Dalit middle class has emerged? Dalit middle class means a middle class has emerged among the Dalit sections of society. Traditionally, the Dalits were the most deprived section. They were at the bottom, but over a period of time, they have also improved their position in the hierarchy. Now, what is the reason how this has happened? Because of the different affirmative action policies, because of positive discrimination, because of reservation. Apart from that, they have also started getting educated. They have been employed in some urban occupations. Many of them have got the government job, and many of them also got jobs in the service sector. In recent times, there is also this concept of Dalit capitalism. So all these things, positive discrimination, that means reservation, greater education attainment, as compared to what in the past. Now also, if you look at SC/STs, they will be at the worst, they will be at the bottom when it comes to education attainment, literacy rates. But as compared to what they were in the past, it has improved over a period of time. So because of all these things, there has been a gradual emergence of the Dalit middle class, apart from the rural middle class. Now, some alternate perspectives also we'll see, or some differing perspectives also we'll see. For example, Pawan Verma, he's saying that if you look at the middle classes, these middle classes are also primarily dominated by those who are the traditionally higher caste. So one view to look at middle classes. Ahmed and Refet, they are saying that if you look at the beginning of the 20th century, that means early 1900s, from that period onwards, the Indian middle classes started posing different kinds of challenges to the Britishers. Initially, they might have been the collaborators, but post 1900, during the period of partition of Bengal and all these point of time, from that point onwards, middle classes started questioning the role of the Britishers. So they started posing a serious challenge to the continuation of the British power. Sanjay Joshi says that power of the middle classes is because of its being cultural entrepreneurs. According to Sanjay Joshi, middle classes are the cultural entrepreneurs. They propagate modern ways of life. But yes, they are also large, they're highly differentiated, but they are the ones who are propagating the modern way of life. The different modern elements are propagated through them. So they are basically entrepreneurs, but in the sphere of culture. Andre Bate, he says that rather than studying middle class, we should study middle classes. Studying middle class is difficult. He's saying better to study middle classes. What do we mean by this? When we say middle classes, it refers to the different kind of differentiation that has happened within the middle class itself. So middle class itself is not a monolith, it is not a one entity. Within that, there are a lot of variations. So it is better to study the middle classes rather than just one monolith identity. There are a lot of variations within the middle class. And what he's saying is the forces of liberalization, privatization, globalization have been unleashed on the Indian economy. But at the same time, the existing kinship patterns, caste, other factors, they are also relevant. They have not become extremely weak. So both the things exist. So as a result of which, the value of the middle classes, it is also evolving, it is also changing. It has not become stable. So if you want to study middle class values, it will be difficult. There is no such stable middle class value. It is also in the phase of transition. So it is very difficult to characterize middle class values. They are still in the process of formation. There is deep-seated differences. There are different kind of contradictions, oppositions, tensions within the middle class. Yogendra Singh, he talks about middle class. He talks about the rural as well as the urban middle class. He says that there is some similarity between the rural and urban middle class. What is the similarity between rural and urban middle class? He feels that both of them are conservative and narrow-minded. Both the urban as well as the rural middle class, they are conservative in nature. Ideologically, they are same. But one thing he's saying that the rural middle class, they harbor some sort of antagonism for the urban middle classes. So there is some sort of antagonism or some sort of feeling of hatred towards the urban middle classes. And he's saying this might be also increasing over a period of time. Because if you look at the rural economy, it has become stagnant or its role is gradually declining over a period of time. So because of that also, this antagonism is there. There is a conflict with the urban middle classes. That conflict exists. So now the question here is, where are we heading? We look at the different perspective. Some are saying it is dominated by the higher caste. Some are saying that it is their cultural entrepreneurs, they promote the modern ways of life. Andre Bate, he's saying that middle class values, it is very difficult to actually identify what is the middle class value because it is in the period of transition. Yogendra Singh is saying that they have a very narrow-mindedness is there. So where are we heading? Now, some thinkers, they say that if there is expansion of middle class, that is the case that is happening here. If there is expansion of middle class, that means we are moving towards modernity. Because they are the ones who will be focusing on education, technical qualifications, etc., etc. So maybe we are moving towards modernity. But now, some thinkers, they question it. They are saying that middle classes in India are not modern. They will have these narrow-mindedness. Some will say that they have a consumerist modernity. What is consumerist modernity? It means that the feeling that you should be good consumers. If you are having the latest gadget, you are wearing Western clothes, in that case you are modern. So what it means is if you are a good consumer, that means you are modern. So these notions might be prevalent. Modernity is not that. Modernity is breaking away from the traditions. You are moving towards egalitarianism, you are moving towards utilitarianism. These kind of things in this modernity. Now, so what is the perspective here? Now, if you look at the different value systems, patterns that exist. Now also, normative patterns, value orientations, they are primarily particularist in nature. The society is primarily patriarchal, the society is primarily male-dominated. Ascription-based criteria, they are still important. If you look at individualism, which is also an important component of modernity, we are not completely guided by individualistic mindset. We are still characteristic in our orientation. When it comes to interpersonal relationships, the choices that we make, they are also controlled by the society. For example, if you look at marriages, interpersonal relationships, marriages still are governed on the basis of caste, on the basis of religion, on the basis of gotra. So society is still controlling you in all these aspects. Social conditioning, it impacts our decisions, it impacts our reaction, it impacts our thinking. So society is impacting us rather than we ourselves focusing on things, thinking about things. So we are more socially controlled rather than being rational. So where are we? Now, it is not that we are not progressing, we are also progressing, but some elements of tradition are still existing in us. And this thing has been beautifully summarized by Dipankar Gupta. He says that though the past is in our present, tradition, some elements of tradition, they still exist in our present. So though the past is in our present, it is not as if the past in its entirety is in our present. That means we have also acquired some new value systems. We have also questioned some of the old systems. We have discarded some of these old systems. Some elements of the old systems, they exist. Some elements of the past, they exist. But some elements of the modern also exist. So both things are together. That is also reflected in the ambivalent thinking among the people. People are also having different opinions now. Previously, they might have been completely guided by tradition, but now they are also questioning things. There can be mixed feelings. So there is metamorphosis. There is a change going on. So at present, the middle classes, they are in a transitional stage. But traditional values, they are still predominant, and they are in that traditional modernity continuum. Traditional values are there, but we are moving towards modernity. So at present, if you have to classify the middle class, where do we exist? We are in the transitional stage, but we are moving towards modernity. So this is about the middle classes, where we are heading. And see, this particular topic you can also link with other things, or you can link it with some of your readings in the newspapers. For example, at present, maybe you are observing things around you. For example, maybe some people you have observed are becoming communal. So try to include those case studies. Apart from that, sometimes there have been studies which point out that middle class people have participated in riots. So try to find out those dynamics, why they are the ones who have participated in riots. So in case you get all these ideas or you come across all these readings in the newspaper, try to incorporate it. How they are still, some of them are still governed by the tradition, but there are still some elements who are moving towards modernity. Both the things should be there. Incorporate some case study if it's possible. So this sums up our discussion on middle classes. Understand who are the middle classes. As per Marx, who are the middle class? As per Weber, who are the middle class? And then we also saw some other thinkers, Randolph and all these people, Benedict Randolph, C. Idris, what they think about middle class. How middle class is emerging in Europe. How middle class is emerging in India. Why the colonial powers, the colonial rulers wanted to have a middle class here. But once the middle class is emerging in India, it is having its own independent identity. It is not questioning the British rule. After independence, who do we consider to be middle classes? How they have expanded over a period of time. And at present, what are some of the notions about middle class? Are they modern? Are they conservative? What is it? And in which direction we are moving? So this sums up our discussion on middle classes. Thank you.